Honey, just use Mama's card. She's got like $130,000 saved up. I heard my son Michael's voice from the living room, and I felt the floor drop out from under me. I was in the kitchen, preparing lunch with my hands covered in flour, when those words cut through the wall and struck my chest like a clenched fist. I couldn't believe what I'd just heard. My own son, the boy I carried for 9 months, the one I nursed and raised alone after his daddy left us, was handing over my bank card to Shanice, his wife, like it was his own. As if the money that cost me 40 years of work, of ruined knees scrubbing other people's floors, of tired eyes sewing late into the night, belonged to him. I dropped the rolling pin on the counter and stood paralyzed, my heart hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. "Are you sure, babe? Won't she get mad?" Shanice asked, with that sweet voice she used when she wanted something. It was a voice I knew all too well after 15 years of watching her manipulate my son. "Nah, Mom won't say nothing. She lives here rent-free. She eats our food, uses our utilities. It's the least she can do to help us out a little. Besides, she's old now. What does she need all that cash saved for? We got expenses. We got a life ahead of us," Michael replied, and every word was like a knife twisting in my back. I stood there, staring at the dough on the table, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. I wasn't going to cry. I had cried enough in this house over the last 20 years, ever since Michael convinced me to sell my little apartment to help him with the down payment on this place, which he now claimed was only his. Rent-free, he'd said. I lived rent-free in the house I helped buy. I ate for free the food I cooked every single day. I used the utilities I paid for with my $500 monthly Social Security check, which I handed over in full every month without keeping a single cent for myself. I heard Shanice's footsteps approaching the door, the rattle of her purse, the jingle of the car keys. She was heading to the mall with my card in hand, with the code Michael had given her, with access to every dollar I had ever sweated for. "I'm heading out to the mall, Mama Loretta. You need anything?" She called out from the living room with that fake kindness she used in front of Michael, as if we were friends, as if she hadn't taken my son from me, piece by piece, all these years. "No, sweetie, thank you," I replied, my voice as steady as I could make it, without turning, without letting her see my face. I heard the door close, the car engine start, the sound fading down the street. I sank into a kitchen chair and looked at my hands. 68-year-old hands, wrinkled and spotted, hands that had worked nonstop since I was 14. I remembered every one of those $130,000. Every bill had a story, a sacrifice, a compromise. The first $10,000 I saved, working as a seamstress in a shop, where I clocked in at 6 a.m. and left at 8 p.m., 6 days a week, saving the little money I made each day in an envelope under my mattress. It took me 3 years to save those first $10,000, eating rice and beans almost every day, never buying myself a new pair of shoes. Another $20,000 came from the extra cleaning jobs I took on Sundays, the one day I was supposed to rest. Huge houses belonging to rich families who paid me $50 for 8 hours of work. I cleaned 3 houses every Sunday, $150 I saved in full without spending a dime. The rest came from years and years of having no life of my own, no new clothes, no trips to the beauty parlor, no eating out, saying no to anything that cost money. While other women my age went out with friends or treated themselves, I counted pennies and tucked them into the bank account I'd opened 30 years ago. And for what? To have a place of my own someday, a small, modest apartment where no one could tell me I was living for free, where I could close my door and be the owner of my space, my peace, my life. That was all I wanted. It wasn't much to ask for after 68 years in this world. But now, my son, my own son, had just handed over my card as if it were his, as if I didn't exist, as if my life and my effort meant nothing. Michael walked into the kitchen with his phone in his hand, not even glancing at me. He poured himself a glass of water and leaned against the refrigerator. "Lunch almost ready, Mama? I got a meeting at 3 and need to eat quick," he said with that tone he'd been using lately, the tone that wasn't a question, but an order. "Almost," I replied, standing up to continue with the dough, though my legs felt shaky. "Oh, hey, Mama. Shanice went to the mall. We needed some things for the house," he said, still not looking up from his phone, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I didn't answer. I kept kneading, pressing the dough harder than necessary, feeling the mix of rage and pain in my chest. "Did you hear what I said?" Michael asked, finally looking up. "Yes, I heard," I said without turning. "And is there a problem?" Irritation was in his voice now, as if I were the one doing something wrong. I turned and looked him in the eyes, those eyes that once looked at me with love, respect, and admiration. Now I only saw impatience and annoyance. "Should I have a problem?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, though inside I was a volcano about to erupt. "No, of course not. It's just some things for the house. Besides, Mama, you live here. It's normal for you to help out with the expenses once in a while," he said, going back to his phone as if the conversation were over. "Help out with the expenses." He said that as if I didn't hand over my full Social Security check every month, as if I didn't cook, clean, wash, and iron for the whole family without charging $1, as if the last 20 years of my life hadn't been dedicated to serving them. "I see," was all I said. And I returned to my dough. Michael left the kitchen, and I stood there, looking out the window at the small yard that I maintained myself. The roses I planted, the grass I watered every morning, the tomatoes growing in the corner, all in a house my son claimed was only his. In that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to stand by and watch them steal the only thing I had left. I wasn't going to let Shanice spend in one day what took me 40 years to save. And I definitely wasn't going to keep living in a house where they treated me like a maid and not a mother. I finished preparing lunch, wiped my hands on my apron, and went straight to my room. I locked the door, pulled out my old flip phone, and dialed the bank number I had memorized. I waited for the rings, my heart racing. "Unity Trust Bank. Good morning. This is Aisha. How can I help you?" A friendly voice answered on the other end. "Good morning. I need to block my debit card immediately," I said firmly. "Can you confirm your full name and account number, please?" the operator asked professionally. I gave her all my details, answered the security questions, and confirmed my date of birth and address. With every passing second, my heart hammered faster, as if I were committing a crime when I was only protecting what was mine. "I understand, Ms. Mathis. Was there an issue with the card? Did you lose it, or was it stolen?" the operator asked. "Let's just say someone has it without my authorization," I replied, choosing my words carefully. "Perfect. I'll proceed to block the card immediately. From this moment on, no one will be able to make any transactions with it. Would you like us to mail a new card to your home address?" Aisha explained from the bank. "Yes, please, but don't send it to this address. I'll pick it up personally at the branch next week," I said, thinking fast. I didn't want Michael or Shanice to intercept my new card. "No problem, Ms. Mathis. Your card was blocked at 11:25 a.m. Is there anything else I can help you with?" the operator asked. "No, that's all. Thank you very much," I said, and hung up the phone with trembling hands. I sat on the edge of my bed, that twin bed Michael had given me when I moved into this house, telling me the room was small and couldn't fit a bigger one. I looked around my 10 by 10 foot room, a bed, a small closet, a nightstand. This was all my space in a 4-bedroom house. Shanice had a full walk-in closet all to herself, bigger than my entire room. Michael had his private office where no one could enter. There was a TV room, a formal dining room only used when guests came over, and I lived in the smallest room, the one that used to be the pantry. But I never complained. I never complained because he was my son, because I loved him, because I thought that someday he would see me again as his mother and not as a burden. How naive I was. I heard Michael's phone ring in the living room, his voice answering, then silence. Then his voice, louder, more agitated. "Blocked? How is it blocked? That's impossible. My mama never blocks anything. She doesn't even know how to use those bank things," Michael was saying, and I could hear the frustration in his tone. I stayed still, holding my breath, listening. "Shanice, wait, let me call Mama," Michael said, and seconds later he was pounding on my door. "Mama, are you in there? I need to talk to you, urgent." Coming, I said, waiting a few seconds before opening the door, pretending I was busy. I opened it, and there was Michael, phone in hand, with that anxious look he got when things didn't go his way. Mama, Shanice just called me from the mall. She said your card isn't working, that it shows up as blocked. Did you block it? He asked, straight to the point. I looked him in the eye, and for the first time in 20 years, I wasn't afraid to tell the truth. Yes, I blocked it, I replied calmly. What? Why did you do that? Shanice is at the checkout with a cart full of stuff. She's being horribly embarrassed, Michael said, raising his voice. I didn't give her permission to use my card. That money is mine, I said, maintaining my composure. Mama, don't start with that now. Shanice was just going to buy some things we need for the house. It's not a big deal. Call the bank and unblock the card right now, Michael ordered with that authoritative tone he had developed over the years. No, I said simply. Michael fell silent, staring at me as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. It was probably the first time in 2 decades I had told him no. What do you mean no? Mama, you're not understanding. Shanice is waiting at the mall with $2,000 worth of purchases. Do you have any idea how embarrassed she is right now? Michael said, his face red with anger. $2,000, I repeated slowly, feeling the words burn in my throat. Michael, she was going to spend $2,000 of my money without even asking me. It's stuff for the house, Mama. A new TV, a sofa set, appliances we need to replace. It's not like it's just for her, Michael explained, as if that justified everything. I didn't authorize those expenses. I saved that money working for 40 years. It's not family money, it's my money, I said firmly, though I was trembling inside. Mama, you live in this house. You use the electricity, the water, the gas, the internet. All of that costs money. Or do you think it's free? It's fair that you contribute, Michael said, crossing his arms. I give you my entire Social Security check every month, $500 that you never pay back. I cook, I clean, I wash, I iron. Isn't that contributing? I asked, feeling my voice break, but holding firm. That $500 doesn't even cover your food expenses, Mama. You're being selfish. You have $130,000 saved that you're not using for anything. What do you need it for? What are you going to do with it at your age? Michael said, and those words hurt more than any physical blow. At my age, as if at 68 years old, I no longer deserve to have dreams, plans, or dignity. That money is for me to buy my own apartment and stop being a burden to you, I said, and I saw Michael's eyes widen in surprise. What are you talking about? Nobody said you're a burden, Michael replied, but his voice didn't sound convincing. You just said it 5 minutes ago in the living room. You told Shanice I was living here for free, eating your food, using your utilities, that I was old and didn't need so much money. That's what you said, I stated, and I watched Michael's face go pale as he realized I had heard everything. A long, awkward silence followed. Michael opened his mouth several times, trying to find words, but nothing came out. Mama, I didn't mean it like that, he finally said, but without looking me in the eyes. But you said it and you thought it. And right now you're more worried about Shanice's embarrassment at the mall than the fact that she tried to spend $2,000 of mine without my permission, I said, feeling the tears well up, but I kept them in. She's my wife, Mama. It's normal for me to defend her, Michael said. And I'm your mother. Isn't it normal for you to defend me? I asked. And that question hung in the air between us like a ghost. Michael fell silent again. He looked at his phone, then at me, then back at his phone. I could see the conflict on his face, the battle between his conscience and his loyalty to Shanice. Mama, please, just unblock the card for today. Shanice is already there. She already picked everything out. We can't leave her hanging like that. We'll talk about this calmly later, Michael said in a softer tone now, trying to manipulate me with guilt. No, Michael. And tell Shanice to come home. The 3 of us need to talk, I said with a firmness I didn't know I possessed. Mama, don't blow this out of proportion. Please, Michael pleaded. I didn't do anything. You are the ones who took my card without permission. You are the ones who were planning to spend my money like it was yours. I'm just protecting what belongs to me, I said. And I took a step back to close my bedroom door. Michael stood in front of my closed door. I heard him knock softly with his knuckles. "Mama, open up, please. Don't be mad," he pleaded, using that voice he used when he was a little boy who'd done something wrong. That voice that used to melt my heart, but now only filled me with anger. I didn't answer. I sat on my bed and waited. I heard his steps retreat. I heard him talking on the phone with Shanice in a low voice. I heard him explaining that I had blocked the card. I also heard Shanice yelling on the other end of the phone so loud that her voice cut through the device. "Your mother is crazy. I'm standing here like an idiot in front of all these people. The saleswoman already called the manager. This is humiliating," Shanice screamed, and I didn't feel an ounce of guilt. Let her feel shame. Let her feel what it's like when someone makes you look bad. I had felt shame for 20 years every time I was introduced at family gatherings as the mother who lives with us. Every time Shanice told her friends that I helped out around the house, as if I were the domestic worker. A half hour passed before I heard Shanice's car pull up. The front door slammed so hard it shook the walls. I heard her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, that sound that always announced a storm. "Where's your mother?" Shanice asked, her voice dripping with venom. "Shanice, calm down. Let's talk about this quietly," Michael said, trying to appease her. "Quietly? Your mother made me suffer the biggest embarrassment of my life. There were like 20 people staring while the saleswoman kept trying to run the card over and over. I had to leave everything there and run out," Shanice screamed. "I know, babe, I know. But she heard what we talked about this morning. She's upset," Michael explained. "And so what if she heard? We spoke the truth. She lives here without paying anything. The least she can do is help us when we need it. It's not fair that she has $130,000 saved while we kill ourselves working and paying all the bills for this house," Shanice said, and every word confirmed what I already knew. To her, I wasn't a person. I was a source of money. I got up from the bed and opened my bedroom door. I walked toward the living room where they were both standing. Shanice looked at me with eyes full of fury, still holding her empty mall bags. "Loretta, we need to talk seriously," Shanice said, without even greeting me, without a hello or a good afternoon. "Yes, we need to talk," I replied calmly, and I sat on the single armchair, which was the only place they ever permitted me to sit. The big sofa was Shanice's exclusive territory. "Why did you block your card? Why did you put me through that embarrassment?" Shanice attacked immediately. "I didn't put you through any embarrassment. You brought it on yourself by trying to spend $2,000 of my money without my permission," I replied, looking her directly in the eyes. "It's not just your money. This is a family. Families share," Shanice yelled, taking a step toward me. "I am not your family, Shanice. I am Michael's mother, and my money is mine. I earned it, I saved it, and I decide what to do with it," I said, keeping my tone calm, though inside I wanted to scream everything I had bottled up for 15 years. "Mama, please don't be like this. Shanice just wanted to buy things that we genuinely need for the house. The TV in the living room is 8 years old. The sofa is all worn out. The refrigerator makes weird noises," Michael intervened, trying to justify the unjustifiable. "If you need those things, buy them with your money. You both work. Michael makes good money as an engineer. Shanice works at that clothing store. You have 2 incomes. Why do you need mine?" I asked. "Because we have expenses, Loretta. This house doesn't maintain itself. The mortgage is $1,200 a month. The utilities are another $300. Food is about $500, plus the internet, the phones, the car, the insurance. It all adds up. There's nothing left over at the end of the month," Shanice explained, with that victim tone she knew how to use so well. "I give you $500 from my Social Security check every month. That helps," I said. $500 is nothing, Loretta. That barely covers your food," Shanice said with contempt. "Need for the house. The TV in the living room is 8 years old. The sofa is all worn out. The refrigerator makes weird noises," Michael intervened, trying to justify the unjustifiable. "If you need those things, buy them with your money. You both work. Michael makes good money as an engineer. Shanice works at that clothing store. You have 2 incomes. Why do you need mine?" I asked. "Because we have expenses, Loretta. This house doesn't maintain itself. The mortgage is $1,200 a month. The utilities are another $300. Food is about $500, plus the internet, the phones, the car, the insurance. It all adds up. There's nothing left over at the end of the month, Shanice explained, with that victim tone she knew how to use so well. I give you $500 from my Social Security check every month. That helps, I said. $500 is nothing, Loretta. That barely covers your food, Shanice said with contempt. Then let me go. Let me buy my apartment with my money and stop being a burden to you, I said. I saw Shanice and Michael exchange a quick glance, a look I couldn't interpret at the time, but which I understood perfectly later. Mama, don't say that. Nobody wants you to leave. This is your home, Michael said, but his words sounded hollow, rehearsed. This is not my home, Michael. You said it yourself this morning. This is your home. I just live here, I said, feeling my voice finally break. Oh, for God's sake, don't start with the drama, Loretta. Nobody said that. Michael was just talking, Shanice interrupted, rolling her eyes. Yes, he said it, and he's right. That's why I want to leave. I want my own place where I am the owner, where I pay my own bills, where no one makes me feel like I'm a burden, I said, and the tears finally started rolling down my cheeks. Mama, you can't live alone. You're 68 years old. What if you get sick? What if you fall? Who's going to take care of you? Michael asked with that false concern that made me angrier than his insults. I'm 68, not 108. I'm perfectly healthy. I can take care of myself. I did it for 40 years before I came to live here, I replied, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. But it's different now, Mama. You're older now. You need to be with family, Michael insisted. What I need is respect and dignity, and I don't have that here, I said, getting up from the armchair. Look, Loretta, let's be honest, Shanice started, crossing her arms. You have nowhere to go. You don't have any other family. Your friends are just as bad off or worse than you. You have no one. If you leave here, you're going to end up alone in a sad apartment, eating alone, watching TV alone, dying alone. Is that what you want? Her words were like slaps, each one designed to destroy the little self-esteem I had left. The worst part was that she was right about one thing. I didn't have much family. My sister had died 5 years ago, my parents decades ago. My few friends were scattered, each with her own life, her own problems. I'd rather be alone and at peace than accompanied and miserable, I responded, surprised by my own bravery. Oh, how dramatic. Nobody's making you miserable, Loretta. We're giving you a roof, food, company. But of course nothing is ever enough for you, Shanice said sarcastically. You don't give me anything. I pay with my Social Security, with my work in the house, with my dignity, I said, raising my voice for the first time. Your Social Security doesn't even cover half of what you cost here. And washing some dishes and sweeping a little bit is not work. Anyone can do that, Shanice yelled, completely losing her composure. Then anyone can do it. Hire someone. I'm leaving, I said, and I walked toward my room. You're not going anywhere, Mama. Stop being ridiculous, Michael yelled after me. I locked myself in my room and listened as the two of them continued arguing outside. Shanice blamed Michael for being too weak with me. Michael tried to calm her down. Both of them talked about me as if I were a problem to be solved, not a person. I stayed sitting on my bed for hours, listening as the house slowly returned to its usual silence. Shanice had locked herself in her room, slamming the door. Michael tried knocking on my door twice more, but I didn't answer. I had nothing more to say to him at that moment. When night fell and the house was completely quiet, I pulled out my old phone and dialed the only number I knew would give me comfort. Ruth, my lifelong friend, the only person who truly knew me. Loretta, what's wrong, girl? It's almost 10 p.m., Ruth answered, her voice worried. And then I broke down. I told her everything, from the conversation I overheard that morning to the fight with Shanice, from the $2,000 they tried to spend to the hurtful words about my age and my loneliness. Ruth listened without interrupting, letting me cry and vent like I hadn't in years. Loretta, listen to me closely, Ruth said when I finally ran out of words. You're coming to my place tomorrow. You can stay with me for as long as you need while you look for your apartment. You can't stay there. That house is killing your soul." "Ruth, I can't impose on you. You live in a small apartment. There's no room," I said through sobs. "I have a pull-out sofa in the living room that's more comfortable than being in that house where they don't value you." "Tomorrow, Loretta. Tomorrow you pack what you need and you come here. That's not a suggestion, it's an order," Ruth said with that firmness she always had when she knew I needed a push. That night, I barely slept. I lay looking at the ceiling of my small room, remembering how I had arrived at this place 20 years ago. Michael had just married Shanice and had told me they wanted to buy a bigger house, but they didn't have enough for the down payment. I had sold my small 2-bedroom apartment, the one I had bought with so much effort, and I gave Michael the money. $50,000 that represented all my life's work up to that point. "It's a loan, Mama. I'll pay you back in 2 years when I get my promotion," Michael had promised me, his eyes bright with excitement. But 2 years passed, then 5, then 10, and the loan was never mentioned again. When I brought it up, Michael would get annoyed. He would say that he was giving me a roof and food, and that was worth more than the $50,000. Now I understood that I had been a fool. I had blindly trusted my son, and he had abused that trust. Worse yet, I had allowed it for 2 decades because I was afraid of being alone, afraid Michael would reject me, afraid of losing the only direct family I had left. But the fear of loneliness couldn't be stronger than my dignity. I couldn't keep living like that. When Friday dawned, I got up earlier than usual. I prepared breakfast as always. I left everything ready on the table, but this time I didn't stay to serve them. I showered, dressed in my best clothes, and started packing my things into the 2 old suitcases I had stored at the back of the closet. I didn't have much: modest clothes, a few pairs of shoes, photographs, important documents, and the small wooden box where I kept the few pieces of jewelry I owned. My mother's wedding ring, some silver earrings my sister gave me, a thin chain I bought with my first paycheck. Everything fit into 2 suitcases. I heard Michael and Shanice get up. I heard their voices in the dining room, eating the breakfast I had prepared. Neither one knocked on my door to see how I was. Neither asked if I had slept well. It was as if I didn't exist unless they needed something. I waited for both of them to leave for work. Michael left first at 8:30 a.m. as usual. Shanice left at 9. When I heard her car engine fade away, I pulled my suitcases out of the room. I walked through the house for the last time, looking at every corner I had cleaned thousands of times. The kitchen where I spent countless hours cooking for a family who barely said thank you. The living room where I could never sit comfortably because it was Shanice's space. The dining room where I always sat in the corner, in the least comfortable chair. I left the house keys on the dining room table. Beside them, I left a note I had written during the night. "Michael, I'm leaving. I can't keep living in a house where I'm only valued for my money. Thank you for these 20 years, but I need to reclaim my dignity. Don't look for me. When I have my new apartment, I'll send you the address. I love you, but I love myself more. Mama." I called a cab and waited outside with my 2 suitcases. Mr. Davis, the next-door neighbor, was watering his lawn and looked at me curiously. "Good morning, Ms. Loretta. Going on a trip?" he asked kindly. "Something like that, Mr. Davis. Something like that," I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. The cab arrived in 10 minutes. The driver, a young man in his 30s, helped me load the suitcases. "Where to, ma'am?" he asked. I gave him Ruth's address, and throughout the ride, I looked out the window, watching the streets of the city where I had lived all my life pass by. Every block moved me further away from Michael and Shanice, and strangely, instead of feeling sadness, I felt something close to relief. Ruth was waiting for me at the entrance of her building when I arrived. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, and that hug made me cry again. But this time they weren't tears of pain, but of gratitude. "You're here now. You're safe now," Ruth whispered, stroking my hair as if I were a child. Her apartment was small, as she had said. A living room, dining room combo, 1 bedroom, a kitchen, and a bathroom. But it was clean, tidy, and above all, full of peace. There was no tension in the air, no looks of contempt, no hurtful words waiting to strike. The sofa bed is all yours. It's not much, but it's comfy. And this house is your house for as long as you need to stay, Ruth said, showing me where I could put my things. Ruth, I don't know how to thank you for this, I said, my voice choked. You don't have to thank me for anything. That's what friends are for. Besides, you'll keep me company. Since my husband passed 3 years ago, this house has been too quiet, Ruth said with a warm smile. We spent the rest of the morning organizing my things. Ruth gave me space in her closet, showed me where everything was in the kitchen, and made me feel welcome in 1,000 small ways. At 1 p.m., my phone started ringing. It was Michael. I didn't answer. He called again, and one more time. Finally, he left a voicemail. Mama, where are you? I came home for lunch, and you're not here. I saw your note. Please call me. I'm worried. Worried. How interesting that he was worried now. He wasn't worried yesterday when he yelled at me. He wasn't worried when his wife tried to steal $2,000 from me. He wasn't worried for 20 years while I withered away in that house. Ruth looked at me with an questioning gaze. You going to answer him? She asked. Not yet. I need to think clearly. First, I need to decide what I'm going to do with my life before I talk to him, I replied, turning off the phone. That afternoon, Ruth and I sat on her small balcony with a cup of coffee. From there, we could see the city, the buildings, life moving below on the streets. You know what hurts the most, Ruth? I said after a long silence. It's not the money they tried to spend. It's not even that they disrespected me. What hurts the most is that I lost 20 years of my life trying to earn my son's love, and now I realize that love was always conditioned on what I could give him. Ruth took my hand in hers, those hands also wrinkled by the years, but strong and warm. Loretta, listen to me closely. You didn't lose 20 years trying to earn his love. You gave 20 years of unconditional love, which is very different. The problem isn't you. The problem is that Michael and that woman didn't know how to value what they had, Ruth said with wisdom. But I'm his mother. Mothers are supposed to sacrifice for their children, I said, still feeling the guilt they had instilled in me all my life. Mothers should love their children, yes, but children must also love their mothers. Love isn't a one-way street, Loretta, and sacrifice has a limit. When the sacrifice is killing your soul, it's no longer love, it's self-destruction, Ruth replied firmly. She was right. She always was. Ruth had been my friend since we both worked in the same textile factory 40 years ago. She knew me better than anyone. She had seen my marriage fail. She had watched me raise Michael alone. She had watched me slowly fade away in that house. Now, you need to think about yourself, about what you want, about what Loretta needs to be happy, Ruth continued. I want my apartment. I want a place of my own where no one can make me feel like I'm in the way, where I can drink coffee in the morning without feeling like I'm using someone else's electricity, where I can watch TV without being told I'm hogging the couch, I said. And as I spoke, I felt something inside me grow stronger. Then that's what we're going to get. We'll start looking for apartments tomorrow, Ruth said with determination. That night, I slept on Ruth's sofa bed, and it was the best night's sleep I'd had in years. There was no tension, no fear of hearing footsteps outside my door, no anxiety wondering what new form of humiliation awaited me the next day. On Saturday morning, my phone was still off, but I could imagine the number of missed calls I had. I didn't care. For the first time in 2 decades, I was my priority. Ruth and I had a quiet breakfast, talking about everything and nothing, laughing at old memories, making plans. Then we got dressed and went out. We had marked 5 apartments to see that day, all within my budget. The first was too dark, with small windows that barely let in light. The second was in a rundown building that smelled of dampness. The third was perfect, but it was on the 4th floor with no elevator, and my knees weren't what they used to be. The 4th had plumbing problems the owner didn't want to fix, but the fifth stole my heart the moment I walked in. It was a 2nd-floor apartment in a well-maintained, secure, 6-story building. It had a living room with a large bay window overlooking a small park, a perfectly equipped galley kitchen, a spacious bedroom with a closet, and a clean, functional bathroom. It wasn't large, about 650 square feet, but it was cozy, bright, and had a peaceful energy. "How much are you asking for it?" I asked the man showing it to us. $65,000. It includes the parking space downstairs and a small storage unit in the basement. The HOA fees are $100 a month, explained Mr. Benjamin, the apartment owner. $65,000. I could pay for it in cash and still have $65,000 left to live comfortably for emergencies, for my later years. "Can I see it again?" I asked. Mr. Benjamin nodded kindly. I walked through every space, imagining my life there. My bed in the bedroom, my clothes in the closet, my few photographs on the walls. I imagined making coffee in that kitchen, sitting by that bay window to read, sleeping soundly. I saw my future within those empty walls, and that future was bright. "I'll take it. I want to buy it," I said with a firm voice. Mr. Benjamin smiled widely. "Excellent decision, ma'am. It's an apartment with great energy. The previous owner lived here for 20 years. She only moved to live with her daughter overseas. It's well cared for. Never had any problems," he explained, pulling some papers from his portfolio. "We need to start the legal paperwork. Do you have a trusted attorney, or would you like me to recommend one?" Mr. Benjamin asked. "I know a good one," Ruth interjected. "My cousin's son is a closing attorney. He's honest and charges fair rates." "Perfect. Then we can meet Monday to start the paperwork. It usually takes about a week to complete the entire legal process," Mr. Benjamin said. 1 week. In 1 week, that apartment would be mine. My name would be on the deed. I would be a property owner, not a burden living for free in someone else's house. We left the apartment with the signed commitment and a $5,000 down payment, which I paid with a check. Ruth and I hugged in the street like two excited girls. "You did it, Loretta! You're going to have your own place," Ruth shouted, not caring who heard us. "I did it," I repeated, feeling a huge smile spread across my face. I really did it. We returned to Ruth's apartment euphoric, making decorating plans, talking about what furniture I would need to buy, what things I could get secondhand to save money. It was then, in the middle of that happiness, that I decided to turn on my phone. I had 32 missed calls from Michael, 17 from Shanice, and over 40 text messages. The messages started worried. "Mama, where are you? Please answer, we are frantic." But then they changed tone. "Mama, this is ridiculous. Drop the drama. We need to talk about important things." And the last ones were directly threatening. "If you don't answer, I'm going to call the police. This is abuse to us. You're going to have to come back. You have nowhere to go." Ruth read the messages over my shoulder and snorted indignantly. "That boy is out of his mind. Abuse to them? As if they haven't abused you for years," Ruth said, shaking her head. "I have to talk to him, but by message. I don't want to hear his voice yet," I said, taking a deep breath. I sat on the sofa and wrote a long message, choosing every word carefully. "Michael, I'm fine. I'm in a safe place with a friend. I needed to leave that house to regain my mental health. For 20 years, I lived feeling like a burden, and yesterday's incident was the last straw. I bought an apartment of my own. I'm moving in a week. This isn't a punishment for you. It's an act of self-love for me. When I'm settled, I'll give you my address, and we can talk calmly. I love you, but I need to do this. Mama." I pressed send before I could change my mind. I saw the 2 checks indicating the message was delivered. Then I watched them turn blue, indicating he had read it. The 3 dots appeared, showing Michael was typing.